There was a significant level of violence involved in this kidnapping.
Tased and taken against his will. Police still searching after a student is abducted in broad daylight. Good evening, I'm Marivel Tarouk. A neighborhood in Markham is shaken by a violent abduction. A 22-year-old man taken from a condo parking garage. Adrian Chung takes us through the brazen kidnapping.
Quiet on the outside, but within the building's parking garage, police say the suspects were lying in wait.
The motive for this is still under investigation. At this point, our focus is really finding that vehicle that we've put out.
Police releasing pictures of the kidnapping of 22-year-old Wanjin Liu as it played out. Liu parked his car and was walking with a female friend in the underground garage just after 6 p.m. Then 3 of the 4 suspects jumped out of a waiting black van, attacked and tased him, then throwing him into the van with stolen license plates before driving off. This apartment building is a busy one with cars coming and going out of the parking garage every few minutes. And that is when police believe the suspects took their opportunity, waiting and seemingly setting a trap for Liu just as he came home. Liu, who also goes by the name Peter, is a Chinese national and a student at Seneca College. The Chinese consulate tells CBC News it is in contact with police and Liu's family in China. Police quick to draw a hard line between this case and kidnapping scams involving young Chinese nationals in Canada over the past 3 years. He says unlike those cases, this one was violent.
He was taken 100% against his will from what we can see in the surveillance video, and as I mentioned, shocked a number of times with that conductive energy weapon. So it was a violent altercation, and we just need to find him right now.
Residents at the apartment unnerved by the apparent abduction. They say it would not have been hard for the suspects to make their way inside.
If someone is behind you, they can technically get in right behind the next person, right? So you can still get in without a fob, technically.
Anyone with information on Liu's whereabouts or who the suspects are being asked to contact police. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Markham.
Shelters in Ottawa say they are seeing an increase in the number of people who are being tracked by their exes using apps.
We just can't keep up with the technology, and of course some alleged abusers, some husbands or partners are even better at this than we are. And there are a couple.
From GPS to phone tracking, experts say the techniques are on the rise. Some shelters are now asking victims to disable the geolocation option on their phones and Facebook accounts before entering their buildings. Games on children's phones and tablets may also track locations. The union representing LCBO workers is raising concerns about theft at stores. It says $77 million were lost to theft last year. The union is now calling on Ontario to follow in Manitoba's footsteps. That province recently announced major steps to curb crime at its liquor stores. Kelda Yoon reports.
This theft happened inside an LCBO last month. A man caught on video loading up on bottles of liquor before walking past the cash and right out the store. Just a few weeks before that, Toronto police arrested 2 men believed to have been involved in up to 40 thefts over 3 months. And in December, 2 women were arrested in what investigators believe is a theft ring involving up to 10 others.
This is the worst that I've ever seen.
Denise Davis has been working with the LCBO for over 35 years. She says a typical thief used to steal a small bottle or 2, but now
we are seeing that it looks like a sophisticated theft ring that is coming in to many of our stores and filling up duffel bags and gym bags full of high-end product.
It's become common enough that customers we spoke to have seen it happen.
Snuck it in a bag. Just snuck it right in the bag.
We were in line and a guy came in with a big like IKEA plastic bag, like sunglasses and everything. And he went to the back of the store and basically just ran out the door.
The LCBO says it has added security guards at select stores, but Davis believes it needs to follow Manitoba's lead.
Customers are going to start seeing some changes in the stores.
After seeing a 300% spike in theft in its liquor marts last year, Manitoba announced major measures on Thursday, including having a team of loss prevention officers stationed at some stores.
These officers, who will be highly trained individuals working in the security field, will use citizens' powers of arrest, and arrested persons will be turned over to law enforcement.
The province will also be making some high-priced products available only by request and begin checking IDs at the front door.
Absolutely, we need to do something similar. We can't just have security in a high-risk store just once a week. We need to know when these thieves are coming in, track that down.
CBC Toronto reached out to the province and the LCBO, but they would not comment. Davis says she hopes to discuss the issue at a meeting with the province on April 10th. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, let's take our first check of the weather for you, and we'll join Sophia for that. And boy, that spring day that you were calling for happened today.
It was short, wasn't it?
Yes,
but
too
it was
short.
there. If you blinked, you may have missed it. And you know what? We'll see more of that this upcoming week, especially the shorter portion, the first half of this work week. The transitional and temperamental nature of the spring season will certainly play out in southern Ontario for this upcoming work week. For example, we begin Monday shivering with the wind chill, and then by the time we're into late week, we're basking once again. It all begins with this cold front dropping a little dusting of snow if you're coming back down from cottage country as we speak. We're blocked from the flakes in the GTA by this cloud deck from the south, but what we will see in behind is the return to a northerly flow and markedly cooler for Monday morning. You will need to turn up the heat in the car as you are commuting to work. Now, as the core of that cold air eventually shifts east, as will a gradual warming trend. By the time we hit Thursday, that's the date to mark down and circle on the calendar, you're basking double digits, patio weather, if I do say so myself. We'll talk about when we return how long this warm-up lasts. We'll also talk about the potential of a system that we are watching into the weekend that looks like it could maybe send those temperatures right back down to the abysmal state, the below seasonal state that we have gotten so used to.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we'll check back with you in a few. Thanks.
Good.
Bianca Andreescu wins 10 matches in a row.
She said what? As Mississauga teen Bianca Andreescu continues her win streak, she is met with some shade. Details coming up. But first, Canadian women's hockey took center stage in our city this weekend. The Montreal Les Canadiens battled the Calgary Inferno for the CWHL's Clarkson Cup.
Clarkson Cup, it's heading west. The Calgary Inferno are your Clarkson Cup champions.
It feels awesome. It's an honor to be here in the first place, and to play Montreal and come out on top, it's a real honor. So, yeah, the girls are loving it right now. Haven't even got undressed yet because we're having such a good time.
Zoe Hickle scored 2 goals as Calgary defeated Montreal 5-2 today at the Coca-Cola Coliseum for their second Clarkson Cup title in franchise history. Calgary also beat Montreal to win its first Clarkson Cup title back in 2016. It was the 3rd time these teams have met in the final over the last 4 years. Another accomplished woman was honored in Toronto today. Mayor John Tory proclaimed March 24th Agnes MacPhail Day. Today is MacPhail's birthday. She was the first woman ever elected to the House of Commons and spent her life working towards equal pay for equal work for Canadian women. MacPhail was instrumental in getting Ontario's first equal pay legislation passed in 1951. She died in Toronto on February 13th, 1954, at the age of 63. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump declaring victory today. But is it the complete opposite of exoneration? Well, we will fact check after the break. A win for the U.S. president? Donald Trump is declaring victory after a Justice Department summary of the Mueller report findings is released. The summary says there is no evidence that Trump colluded or conspired with Russia to influence the 2016 presidential election. Paul Hunter breaks it all down for us.
For almost the whole time he's been in office, Donald Trump had waited for this. Today, stepping toward the cameras, no doubt relishing the moment to say, finally,
it was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration.
And while that's not entirely true, parts of it are. As Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who'd spent 22 months investigating Donald Trump while steering clear of cameras, today chose to go to church, then walk past the White House. He was doing so just as Attorney General Bill Barr was at the U.S. Justice Department putting the finishing touches on a summary of Mueller's findings. It's the summary released today that Trump was talking about on that tarmac. Key point, as Trump has said so often, no one in the Trump campaign was found to have colluded with Russia as Russia tried to influence the 2016 election. That's a huge win for Trump. But Mueller's findings on the other matter, on whether Trump obstructed justice trying to impede that investigation, the findings are ambivalent. It's not established that Trump committed any crime, says the summary, but Mueller's report does not exonerate him. And nowhere in Barr's summary does it say there is no evidence of any wrongdoing.
President Trump is wrong. This report does not amount to a so-called total exoneration.
Democrat Jerry Nadler, who would lead impeachment proceedings if it ever came to that, now says he wants the Attorney General to testify on Capitol Hill. Plus,
the entire unfiltered report, as well as the evidence underlying that report, must be made available to Congress and to the American people.
Still, back home in Washington tonight, Trump was in a pretty good mood.
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth. The greatest place on earth. Thank you very much.
And for now, he left it at that. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
A harrowing ordeal on a cruise ship off the coast of Norway is now over. It reached port this afternoon after being left powerless in roiling seas for more than a day, just meters from hitting rocks.
I think the moment of concern for me came when they started actually handing out life jackets and talking about helicopters being on the way.
The luxury cruise ship issued a Mayday call Saturday afternoon. Almost 1,400 were on board, including 15 Canadians. It was listing so badly, furniture and people were tossed from side to side. Engine trouble had let it adrift in waves about to 8 meters high. At one point, a huge wave crashed through glass doors. Rescue teams worked through the night, winching people up to helicopters, eventually ferrying more than half the passengers to land. But today, the sea calmed, partial power was restored, the airlift halted, and tugboats escorted the ship into port. Cyclone Idai tore through southeastern Africa 10 days ago, but the need for aid keeps growing. Officials now confirm more than 760 people are dead. The urgent concerns now for the survivors are hunger, dehydration, and disease. The CBC's Nala Ayed shows us some of the challenges of getting aid to the people who need it most.
In the unbearable heat, it is a heavy lift. But in the business of saving lives, this is the easier part. Still, to get just 2 metric tons of food moving, you need dozens of hands. Simple ingredients: rice, tinned tomatoes, biscuits, and oil. But when half the country is affected, it is a complicated mission.
We're not past the danger zone, you know. We don't want to have saved people to just delay the problem and having a big loss of life later on. So it's still very urgent.
10 days since the cyclone swept through here like a giant eraser. From up here, you can see the inland sea and the tree cemetery that goes on for kilometers. And in the breadbasket of Mozambique, it left countless hungry and isolated. That's where the helicopters come in.
We're told that this helicopter was actually diverted from South Sudan, and that gives you a sense of the urgency. The World Food Programme is actually putting this emergency on par with Syria, Yemen, and South Sudan, and that makes it one of their top priorities.
And so they stir excitement wherever they're able to land. The more isolated, the more welcome. And inevitably, the more crowd control necessary. And so this human chain picks up where the other left off, no less weight on their shoulders. But the food is actually meant for another, more desperate village isolated by the floods, more than 100 kilometers away. This had just been the first leg on the way. Follow the flooding river and you can see the challenge that desert of water presents. The Kaya area was flooded even before the cyclone arrived. There's water in the fields, in the house, and also in the shops, says Luisa Alberto. Muhammad Ignacio is a policeman here.
Did people die?
Some people die. The place is broken.
The WFP helicopter has one more urgent run before the day is out. They just heard 1,200 farm workers are stranded by a giant new lake. It's a quick drop of the basics, tents and food. The first outside help these survivors have had in 10 days. One moment, countless hours and thousands of dollars in the making. And a country that's desperate for more of them. Nala Ayed, CBC News in central Mozambique.
Coming up, how the George Brown Fashion Exchange is turning a Durham business's dreams into reality, creating accessible clothing.
Coolway Sports started as a business right here at home, and now they're selling their products all around the world, thanks to a unique partnership. The company designs accessible outerwear for people using wheelchairs. As Taylor Simmons tells us, when their brand started to take off, they enlisted the help of a George Brown program.
Watching their designs come to life, John Cook and Jennifer Gallion can't believe how far they've come since starting Coolway Sports 10 years ago.
We had no patterns, we had no staff, we had a client base, but no real sales.
But they had a passion for designing comfortable and warm outerwear for people using wheelchairs.
Neither of us have any family members in wheelchairs. To me, it's a philanthropy, it's a feel. We believe in what we've done.
There's a real hole in the marketplace. There's not too many people doing what we do.
In a normal day, to dress a child in a wheelchair takes 10 to 15 minutes. And if you dress and undress, that's a lot of time in a given day. We can dress anyone in our full coat with the blankets in 2 minutes.
Sometimes you just want something that's easy to take off. The brand began to pick up traction, but refusing to produce outside of Canada, the duo didn't have a big enough facility to churn out large orders. That's when they heard an interview on CBC's Metro Morning about George Brown's Fashion Exchange.
They were struggling to find production services and support to get their product launched, and they came to us.
The exchange is a manufacturing workshop made up of students, industry professionals, and members of the Regent Park community looking for training, including many immigrants. They produce smaller runs of clothes for companies trying to expand while giving their staff valuable experience.
The need is so great, and for adaptive clothing, and certainly anything that has that niche. So many of the really great ideas that are emerging, they just need a way to get started, and if we can offer that to some of these, then I feel like it's a great win-win for all of us.
Here is the Coolway Cool Boot. The designers 3D print and sew hundreds of custom coats, capes, and boots. The partnership helped Coolway seal a deal with one of the world's largest wheelchair companies, Permobil.
This is a worldwide company, and to have our name out there with this brand is huge. So it's hats off to also George Brown that we're working together and collaborating on such global markets.
Now the partners are busy preparing orders for a new deal with Zappos Adaptive, an online store owned by Amazon, taking their decades-long dream and made in the GTA products across the globe. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Another big win for rising Canadian tennis star Bianca Andreescu, but it came with a bit of shade.
A perfect 10. Bianca Andreescu wins 10 matches in a row.
Biggest drama queen ever. Harsh words courtesy of Andreescu's opponent, Angelique Kerber of Germany. The 18-year-old from Mississauga extended her winning streak after she beat Kerber at the Miami Open, a match that finished at 1:30 this morning. It was Andreescu's second win over Kerber in less than a week. Kerber won, or rather, Andreescu won a thrilling final in Indian Wells to capture her first women's title, though it isn't clear what upset Kerber. However, the three-time Grand Slam champion later tried a more congratulatory approach in a post on Twitter. Andreescu did not reply to her post. Well, the NHL has seen a lot of things since Foster Hewitt's first radio broadcasts for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But tonight, it saw something it had never seen or heard before. Not he shoots, he scores, but the rough equivalent in Plains Cree in the first ever NHL broadcast in that language. The game featured the Montreal Canadiens and the Carolina Hurricanes. The play-by-play announcer was Clarence Iron, who has now taken his place in the history books. All right, we'll check in on our weather forecast now with Sophia Kambalia. Okay, up and down, it sounds like, for this week.
And all things that go down must eventually come up again. Let's begin there. Over the next few hours, you will see that steady decrease. By the time you wake up Monday morning, a north wind will make it feel a little bit more like the minus double digits as you're heading out on your commute. But eventually, that freezing line will be far up to the north in northern Ontario, and we'll be basking. Thursday is the warm day, double digits. Friday, you are back down to seasonal. And that's right about the time where these two clashing air masses between warm and cold will look to do battle. We could have a rainy system into Saturday, dropping temperatures potentially for the end of the weekend. I know people are watching this for the Around the Bay race, but will March go out like a lion? Did it come in like a lamb? We actually got off pretty easy when it comes to snow from our usual totals. Much of this was seen during the first week of March when it was a little bit chilly. We were about average when it comes to rain. So there's still time for things to get a little dicey in the last few days to round off the month. Until then, though, it's a nice couple clear days. You know, the type of days when you get into the car, even with the jacket on, it feels warm because of all the sunshine. So we'll take that.
Yes, we will. Sunshine anytime. Thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. But before we go, take a look at these faces. All part of the festivities at today's annual Greek Parade on the Danforth. Thanks for watching. Stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night, everyone.